Hello everyone, this is Ross from Retro Dreambeam. I'm an eBay seller full-time. I've been doing this with my fiance for a couple of years now. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I'm about to do a little video about how I negotiate at different places such as yard sales and estate sales and other places, friends, or honestly anywhere where you can negotiate. And I've even used this at like thrift stores. I have a couple of examples that I've done this at, like a half price book. So you can negotiate almost anywhere and everywhere. But the first thing I want to jump into is I don't actively go into a negotiation thinking about all these different little lists that I'm about to give you folks. I just kind of do it. It just kind of comes naturally. And then when I'm thinking back on it right now for making this video, I found some core stuff that I happen to do most of the time or almost all of the time. But in general, negotiating, it's still pretty random. None of this is a guarantee. Things change by case basis. I pay attention to like thousands of little nuanced things, like how someone talks, who they like, what they are, what items they like, what they're selling. There's just so much that goes into it, and I do pay attention to a ton of it. Every little thing helps, but I'm just going to go into some core stuff that I think will help, at least helps me a lot. Number one, the most important. It sounds simple. It really is the most important by far. Be respectful and be polite. This includes things like introduction, like when you walk into a estate sale or yard sale, say hi, smile if you want to smile. You don't have to smile, but smile if you want to smile. A wave, a slight introduction. If you happen to know the person, say, hey, how's it going? And then insert their name. Most important, also, say thank you. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, thank you. Please. I'm sorry. These are things that I pretty much see very little of at any yard sales, estate sales these days. So this is going to give you great leverage later on when you're negotiating. Just be a basic human. I know it sounds silly, but this really is number one. Other things like move out of people's way, whether it's the person you're buying from, the seller, the estate sale employees, always move out of people's way. Also, always offer to help carry something or help out. It doesn't have to be to the seller. It could be to another buyer. This is how you can make connections and even maybe buy stuff from maybe not even the seller themselves. This all comes naturally to me. This is just how I was raised. So this respect and politeness, like I said, it just comes natural to me, but it is the most important for anything else I'm going to be talking about. The next thing I noticed that happens to come up a lot, at least when I negotiate, is I'm always willing to walk away from a deal and not expect that it's going to happen, that a negotiation is going to happen. And don't fake this. This is not something that you have to put on a mask and fake it. I generally go into a negotiation in my mind going, okay, this is not 100% guaranteed to happen. They might not negotiate at all. What this actually does is it eases off the nerves. Like now all the nerves and the tension is gone. You don't have to worry about, there's no pride on the line. You're just trying to negotiate a better price for yourself. No nerves, no emotions, just like, it just eases it. As long as you're willing to walk away. And you have to actually be willing to walk away from a deal. Not in like a rude stamp off walk away, but like just be willing to not get the items you want, if it's not the price you want. This also gives you it exudes confidence kind of naturally, because other people can tell when they're selling stuff. If you really want something, like if you're foaming at the mouth for something, they can smell that, they can feel that, they can see that. If you're actually going into something going like, oh cool, this could be a cool home run for reselling, I can make a lot of money from this. But if you go into it thinking that it might not happen, it will give you confidence. You also get to quickly figure out if someone actually wants to sell something or not. There are times where I will go into a deal thinking like this is not going to happen, and I can then smell and feel out just by the aura of the other person that they want to sell the stuff. Like they'll start doing the negotiations for you, because then you know that you can throw out a bigger percentage off number than you normally would be able to. So recapping really quickly, kind of going through this fast. Be respectful and polite, most important. Number two, be willing to walk away from a deal. Assume it won't always be a negotiation, and don't fake it. Like actually genuinely go into that thinking it's not going to happen. Number three, this one's also super important. Always throw out the first number, if possible. Always. This is very important, at least for me, or at least I feel like it is. It sets the tone. and you find out quickly where both you as the buyer and the seller is at. Do not get afraid to be insulting with this offer. This isn't a job interview where you're trying not to insult someone who's going to employ you. That you are the person just going to buy some stuff. You're trying to flip it to make profit. And whatever the seller is, you don't actually know what their goal is. They might just want to get rid of stuff. They might just want the space and they don't care about the number. There's plenty of times I've noticed that sellers have said that they just want the stuff gone. And then there's other times where like you can tell that the person's they're probably a reseller themselves. So that's a whole nother can of worms to talk about. But yeah, you can tell if they're not like budging at all and the prices are exactly as you would find online. Yeah, you'll quickly find out if you throw out the first number, and depending on their response, it's good to know where both people are at. And then with this throwing out of the first number, I kind of go through these categories in my head about like a safe number to throw out all the way to like a super risky number to throw out. I've done all of these. I've had success with all of these. I've also had failures with all of these. Like I said, it's really nuanced. And if you've been respectful and polite, that helps a little bit here. Generally speaking, I think anytime I've asked for 10% off, you don't tell someone 10% off. You do like the quick math, if it's $10, hey, can I get that for $9? I'm just giving you guys a quick example. 10% is pretty safe bet. Usually if someone wants to sell something, 10%, you'll probably get it. This is like almost like a very safe number that anyone can go out there and try, even at estate sales. I've also had good luck at negotiating first day estate sales. I've gotten lucky with it, but it has happened a lot. I don't believe in like the random rules of like, oh, you can't negotiate on the first day. They'll tell you if you can't, you still try. And then you get into the zone. You usually don't do like 11% off to like 19%. That's just like not a zone you really go into. It's also harder to do the mental math. And in general, when I'm talking about these percentages, I do like quick, like creative fake math. I'm not taking out the calculator. What is a 19% off of a deal that's $105 or $93.75. No, you just do like, oh, what's 10% and add a little bit. Be a little quick with this. You don't have to literally do these numbers. But 20 to 25% is generally okay to go into. And then if the person's not willing to hit that 20 to 25%, they're probably only at a 10% or they just want the full price. Like you find out very quickly right there. It's not insulting. They're not going to be insulted. But yeah, if they're not willing to do 20 to 25% off of their price, that's probably like a no negotiation situation. This is where number 2, when I was talking about, just be willing to walk away if the price is still not good. The price still might be good. Then there's 30 to 50%, which to me always feels like, unironically, a 50-50 if it's going to work or not, at least for me when I've been doing this. I do like to go into the 30 to 50% range. I don't think things like this are insulting. Like I said earlier, this isn't a job interview where someone's going to hold like they won't hire you or something, where that could be insulting if you overvalue or undervalue yourself at a job interview. Let's go back into the negotiations. That's a good range I like to. And my personal favorite zone is 75% off. I know it sounds crazy, but this usually goes back to what I think about negotiating. When I'm sitting there in my own head, like, okay, I'm up in line. What do I want to pay for this? I usually just like, what's the first number I think of? And then I take that number and I cut it in half and see what happens. Like, it is usually an uncomfortable number. I remember there was this yard sale I was at. I got this huge box of books. I had other stuff all piled high. And then I was like, you know what? I could probably make a lot of money if I get this for $40. And then I was like, you know what? Cutting that in half. I'm just going to try. Seller comes. I throw out the first number. I say, hey, I'm getting this box and all the stuff around it. Would you be able to do $20 for that? I was also respectful. I said hi. I wasn't pushy. I was polite to everyone else. She instantly said, yes, thank you. I gave her the 20, walked out. My fiance was like, oh, wow, how'd you do that? I'm like, I don't know. But thinking about it now, I was doing all these things. I threw out the first number. I was willing to, take it for $40 or maybe more because I knew $40 was already going to be good. I made an uncomfortable spot. They didn't get insulted. I was polite. All these things add up. So yeah, 75% is like the personal zone I like to go into. Like I said, every case is nuanced. Once you start getting sources or people that you know the boundaries that you can push. But in general, if you're really nervous about it, 10% usually is going to happen. If 10% is not happening with the person, they either want to like keep the items or they're just doing their own reselling business, which is, it's their item. That's the other thing. I have to go back to being willing to walk away and don't fake it for part 2. I'm sorry to jump backwards, but the reason why I also go into these deals expecting a negotiation not to work is it's not my item. This like that's also what it ties into, also to number 1, be respectful and polite to the people. This is their stuff. They're inviting you to their area, their garage, their home, and they are offering you a chance to get the items. So it's not your item until you pay the person and you agree to a price. So with that in mind, it does help with number 2 to just be willing to walk away, because like there's no reason to get mad if a negotiation doesn't happen. It's not your item. It's their item until you pay. They can ask for $1,000 on like a pencil. Obviously people probably won't buy it, but they're allowed to ask. It is their thing. You're in their space. So just respect it. Sorry to have to backtrack there. So recap, because I also need a little quick recap of myself. Number 1, be respectful, polite. Number 2, be willing to walk away from a deal and assume it might not happen. 3, always throw out the first number. Number 4, maybe not as important as the first 3. Well, I think it's important. Purchase everything at once. Oh, I get so frustrated watching someone go up one item, ask the price, to get out the exact change, do it. They do that for like 5-10 items. They put down a bunch of items and the price is not right for the person buying, which is, it's their right. They don't have to buy everything that they bring up. But this, can you imagine just being the seller of someone coming up with an item every 5-10 minutes? Like these estate sales, yard sales are usually pretty, like kind of not super stressful, but they're, it's like a little bit of stress is in the air. It could be annoying, it could be hot out, it could be raining. Like there's so many variables in it that make it like slightly stressful. You don't want to be annoying, so purchase everything at once. The person will usually be excited that you're like bringing a big pile of stuff, because now they're going to take you more serious. They're knowing that they're probably going to get some money, so they're excited because that's why they're hosting an estate sale, a yard sale or something. Like it's to sell stuff to get money. So now they're going to take you more serious, which actually means you're going to be able to, when you throw out the first number, you're going to be able to get a better price, because they know you're not going to waste their time. It also shows them that they're going to get a bunch of space. Like they're getting a bunch of space freed up for whatever they're selling. So if someone in a yard sale, they go, oh great, there's there's going to be more space in the kid's bedroom or the garage or whatever the case. So yeah, this purchasing everything at once really does help. So that would be my at least 4 things that I do that help me negotiate. Recap one more time. I'm respectful and polite to everyone around me, not just the seller. To B. 2, I'm always willing to walk away from the deal if it's not the right price for me, and if it's not the right price for the person. It's their item. Be respectful. Just be willing to walk away, and this really does help you negotiate. 3, always throw out the first number. And in my personal case, I like to make it an uncomfortable number. It's intriguing. It's exciting to see what happens. I'm trying to think if I ever actually insulted someone. No, I mean, there's been people that are people that I buy stuff from fairly often, and sometimes they'll joke. They'll be like, "Oh, come on, Ross, like that's it." You know, that's the worst comment I got, with them laughing out of half of their mouth, knowing I was going too low. So yeah, I don't think I've ever insulted a single person ever. I've gone really, really low on offers. I've done over 100+ negotiations at this point. So, yep. And then 4, purchase it in bulk. Purchase everything at once. Our personal favorite is a car full. Like literally fill up your car. Know your car's limits. Fill it up and see what happens. They can throw out the first number and see what happens. You'd be surprised. You really would. I'm at the point of the video where I went through like the main stuff, I recapped it, but I'm going to go into a couple of really tiny like nuanced strategies. There's a lot of nuanced strategies of things to do, and there's a lot of stuff I personally think not to do. I could ramble on and on and on if I just sat here and thought about them. I'm just going to throw out a couple right now. There's this strategy that we figured out. They're called thrown in last minute items. My fiance is really good at this. You have to know who's going to do a throw in, because this is super risky. There are people I purchase from where I know if it's not part of the bulk deal, it's usually way more expensive to try to grab 2 more items at the end after like the deal's like wrapping up, as the money's being handed. Like this is a really time sensitive thing. My fiance is usually like eyeing something, and usually the buyer will be like, oh, okay, well, I see she's looking at whatever, that plushie, that last minute thing, or those 2. Or she'll come up to me and be like, oh, what about this? usually that ends up being a throw-in. Like, it's usually free. We're willing to pay for it, but it's nice that it always usually seems, not always, it usually seems to just be like a throw-in. Because you're buying a bunch of stuff, someone's usually not going to like penny pinch you on one last thing. But this is how you can squeeze a little bit more out in negotiations. It never has to be like a crazy expensive item. Usually like a $5, $10, $15 item. Just like I'll look at like a deck of playing cards, and then they'll be like, I'll be like, oh, how much is this? After we're like wrapping up the deal, and they'll be like, oh, it's just thrown in, or oh, it's $1 or something, and it's like, oh, nice, cool. I just got like a little cherry on top. This isn't gonna be a make or break to become a full-time reseller. This is just a nice, like, everything matters. Money can be pretty tight with reselling, so I think every little bit helps. It doesn't make or break the bank. This one is, I don't know if other people have noticed this. I don't know what they call this. Be the buyer right after an awful buyer experience. I'm going to repeat that. You want to be the buyer right after an awful buyer experience. I'll explain it. I've been at so many estate sales or yard sales where there is someone who is in line in front of me, or I'm not in line yet, and they are just being a pain. Like they're basically avoiding all my advice. They are not throwing out the first number. They were never respectful. They don't even say hi. They come up, throw down an item, and like throw it down. They didn't even introduce themselves to anyone. They just go like, oh, I want this for like $10, and then like the item's like $50. Like, I already know this is not happening. Like, they're just not doing anything that I do. So I don't think this has ever worked. Of course, the seller, they're frustrated. They're getting their time wasted, and everyone knows it. So you have to time this very well. It can't be too soon, and it can't be too late. So after that buyer, they never end up buying anything, leaves. The person selling is now more susceptible to actual negotiations with someone that's going to take their time seriously. So yeah, you see the annoying buyer go. You wait. Sometimes this is 10 seconds, sometimes 30 seconds, sometimes 5 minutes. Like, you really have to know. You have to like get a intuition read on the person, the seller, and then you go up, you throw everything. I mean, you don't throw everything down. You have a big pile of stuff, or you say, hey, hello there, could you please check out my stuff? I have a big pile of stuff I want to buy. They walk over. You're just being polite now. You're being nice. They just dealt with someone that was rude. Hey, would you be able to do like $80 for all of this? Boom. Usually, if you time it well, this goes pretty well. And then sometimes they'll want a little bit more. They'll be like, oh, how about $100? Goes back to my point of why you want to do a more uncomfortable number. You take your number where you want and cut it in half, because they might just like go up to what you were comfortable in the first place. That's usually what I do. So let's say if I was willing to buy the whole car full of stuff at a estate sale or whatever for $150. Let's say I'm gonna throw in 80 because that's a nice number. It's not exactly half. I know that, but 80, and then they'll be like, how about 100? So now in my head, my original 150 throwout number is now down to 100. I saved a bunch of money, because if I would have thrown out 150, they would have been okay with it if they're okay with 80 to 100 now, if that makes sense. So yeah, this is a very cool tactic when it works out. It's fun. It's fun. It's exciting when this one happens, and also it feels good. It feels like there's karma in the world where like there's just like these rude people, and it feels like justice where they don't get their stuff, and then you get to actually negotiate because you're nice, you're polite, you're not being rude. It feels good. It feels like a little bit of justice. I know I'm getting like really intense in this, but that's how it feels for us. It's nice. It's a fun thing to try, and it doesn't always work. They might still be pissed, and then you're not negotiating at all. Like, nope, not even 10%. $150 for that pile or nothing. So like, you'll figure out really quickly if you timed it well. So this is super risky. I think I've only gotten away with this like a handful of times. Generally you get a no for it. I'm just throwing it out here because it works out for me sometimes, but I wouldn't recommend a lot of people to do this. I still haven't, I feel like, mastered it yet. But you kind of do this double down in your negotiations where you do a last second rounding like down usually, right? So there was one time I was at this estate sale. I was surprised this worked. They already did not want to negotiate. I happened to negotiate a bunch because like I brought a bunch of stuff up, and I think my big pile of stuff helped. I was unaware that they just don't do negotiations ever. This was like I think last day too, so I thought that there'd be some percentages off. There wasn't. They wanted to sell like a bunch of books for $5 each, and I'm like, oh, I was like, I brought everything up. I was sweating. I was like, oh, can I do like I think I said like 40 or 60 for a box, and then she dug in, counted all of them. She's like, oh, it's supposed to be like 200, but sure, we'll do 60. So she took my price, my thrown out offer price. And then I got some other stuff too. When it all added up to something like 77. I asked, would you be able to do 70? And it worked out. So I got to cut it down even more by another $7. This is the part where you can actually insult someone if you already did the negotiations and then you're trying to like round it down. This tactic usually works with, I call it like in my head like fake leverage. It's all the stuff that you can feel confident that you're like having leverage in the negotiation. So you can say stuff like, oh, don't worry, I'll bag all this up. I'll give you back your bins. I have cash. Just anything that increases their quality of life. It goes a long way. So you might say, oh, I have cash. Can I do it for 70? And they might be wanting cash for whatever reasons they want cash for, but they'll be like, okay, sure. So you get to do that last minute rounding trick. But yeah, all this like fake leverage. It just you and how you interact with these people. You're just being human. They're human. It really does go a long way. This is also how you eventually establish sources, connections, like people that you can go back to. You now know their name. They generally know what prices you're going to throw out. They know that you're going to buy a car. You might be known as the person who buys all the ephemera, those like maps. We've even had people come up to us like, oh, hey, there's this guy who came up to me and he noticed we were getting like weird, like maps and stuff. And he just had like a pile for me. He's like, oh, hey, I noticed you guys get this stuff. Do you want it? And I'm like, sure, cool. I didn't even have to like work for it at that point. So yeah, all this helps. These are things that I do to negotiate. Like I said, I could sit here talking like I can make more notes, and then I could have like a bunch of things. Everything is a case by case. It's just paying attention to every little tiny detail. It feels like everything matters. Everything has rewards. Everything has consequences. And then there's also like chaos and randomness in here. It's exciting to me. There are times where I have not negotiated just because I wasn't in the right mindset. There are times where all of this stuff has failed for me because I've been in the mindset. I've never gotten into a fight with someone negotiating. I was always willing to walk away. I've been upset one time. There was one time that I was pretty upset. I didn't get upset to the seller, but yeah, later on when I went home, I was like, oh wow, I'm like, why am I so upset? This is like, it's not even my item. It's their stuff. Like, it's not a big deal. They weren't budging on anything, and it was sad because I thought a bunch of stuff. I think it was a bunch of miniatures. I just felt like it was going to go to like waste, like either like the garbage or something. And I knew I had a lot of profit, but they wanted like an actual insane number. They wanted like $600 for like probably what was worth like $300. Wasn't taking my own advice. I'm talking here now where it's their stuff. They can ask for whatever they want. But later on, I was just like frustrated because I thought I'd be able to strike a deal, and I wasn't able to. So like, yeah, every person is different. You might come off as annoying to someone and then respectful to another person. If you like the video, please don't forget to like it, and also please subscribe to the channel if you want more content. I know this one was a little bit more rambly. Take a look at our shop down below if you would like to help support us. Thank you for watching, and have a good night, and good luck negotiating out there. It's a lot of fun.